Blog Talk Radio.
Warning. Due to the political and controversial content of this show, Global Fact Radio presents this information for educational purposes and accepts no legal liability. This information has not been verified by Global Fact. Global Fact recommends that each individual does his or her own research.
You're listening to Global Fact Radio.
All right. This is Gian Roberts, and welcome to the new you, the new show on Global Facts Radio. We want to introduce my co-host, Cornell Grady. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
All right. Can you hear me, Cornell?
Now, what was the question?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
All right, great. Well, I want to first start off the show by thanking Global Facts Radio for giving us the opportunity to host the show here. This is our first premiere show, and on this show we're going to be covering a few topics. We're also going to have a guest host, Michelle Lee, who's going to be on the call tonight and contributing to our conversation. If you have any questions or want to chime into the call, we will have a open Q&A at the end of our presentation, and at that point we'll be answering questions. So either leave your questions in the comment area, or you can call in to 646-478-5728, and you will be put in queue to ask your question live on the air. Cornell, do you have anything that you want to talk about real quick before I introduce Michelle?
Actually, what I want to do is just as a perspective of how all of this come about. Myself and Jeff, what we do is we help people take their intellectual properties and put it into some kind of format so they can get it out to the world. Everybody has a voice, and they want to get information to people and make a difference and make an impact and inspire and encourage and things of that nature. And we have a very fine format and program that we help people do that. Michelle happens to be one of those people that we're helping do that, and as you just said, they're going to hear from her in just a few moments. But those people who know that they have a voice and they want to get it out to the public, either regional, national, international, that's one of the services that we provide, and we are excited about doing it because we know that change does make a difference. And so here with the New You program, we want to encourage people to be able to look at things as if they were looking at it for the first time. However, with all of the wisdom and the knowledge and experience that they've had over the years. So that's one of the great things about the New Year program is helping people be able to look at things as if they were looking at it for the first time. And so that's, with that being said, Jeff, I am ready to rock and roll, man.
I also wanted to say, the core foundational belief that we both share is that, we believe that the mind is the most powerful tool that we have. It's the most valuable resource that we have. Our minds, our experiences, our stories are valuable resources. And it's something that you can tap into, especially in this day and age, and really become the person that you wanted to be. And one of the topics we're going to cover tonight is fear, because fear is holding a lot of people back. And there's lots of things going on in the world right now that are causing fear in people's lives. And we just want to discuss some of these things that are causing fear and people just kind of like freezing in their tracks because they don't know what to do or where to go with their ideas or concepts. I don't know. What do you think about that, Cornell? Cornell?
Okay.
All right. So introduce Michelle for us, Cornell.
Yes. I have the pleasure of introducing this brilliant young lady who has a very profound story, and I've been able to work with her for a period of time. But what we have, we're going to do what we call a 21-day challenge. And in that process, we're going to be dealing with how to rearrange our language. As you just mentioned about the mind and the brain being one of the most powerful elements here on the planet, we want to help people begin to see how they can reprogram themselves for success. They can achieve anything that they have the power to dream about. But we're going to do that in just a moment. But I want this young lady to be able to begin to share and set the parameters here for her book and product that she's working on, and it's about fear, facing fear. So, Michelle, with all of that wonderful stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to go into it.
Well, as you have stated earlier, Cornell, you have had the pleasure, and I have also had the pleasure of working with you to just come out of the fear. You know, when I began talking to you, I recall the first time I talked to you, and I said, I really can't do. I don't. You asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I have no idea what I want to do. And you said, yeah, you got to know what you want to do. And I said, no, I really don't. I'm stuck in a place, and I don't even know what words to put with it because I don't know how I got here. I don't know what it is. And as we began to talk and we began to communicate different things, and you opened up a lot of things and said, we're going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. And it wasn't until we began to really open up different avenues that I began to realize what the problem was, and that was fear. And how did that problem begin? It began many, many years ago. And as a child, I recall, different instances in my life where I was confronted with things that caused me to draw up and go into fear. So with that being said, I began to ask certain questions of myself. Who is responsible for conquering this fear? Am I responsible for it? Is someone else responsible? And I began to just take a look within myself and ask these questions. What does your fear look like? What are you going to do to face the fear? What type of plan or strategy do you have? And when do you plan on taking action? When are you going to be able to move beyond where you are? When will you be tired of not confronting this fear? And where are you now? Where do you want to go? Where is your power? And how are you going to get rid of your doubt? How long can you continue running away? So as I began to ask these questions, I came up with a solution. And that solution was to just conquer the fear. Just face it head on and deal with it. And as I began to read different literature, it made me just think about what I wanted to do, and coming out of that fear helped me to see I had something to do. Before I didn't know what I wanted to do and didn't even know if I had anything to do because I was so afraid. And so it just came to me that there comes a time in my life where I have to get sick and tired of defeating myself by standing up and confronting that fear. So I began to think, what am I going to do to take back that power to face the fear in my head, the talk that was going on in my head. So I had to stop retreating and then stop running away and just stand there and say, you know what, you're going to do this. And just having those self-talks, you're going to do this. But along with your help, Cornell, a lot of times you didn't know this, but a lot of times I was in a state of depression where I just didn't even want to talk. I didn't want to deal with the fear or deal with anyone for that matter. And so sometimes when you would call and talk to me, it would make me just deal with what I was dealing with. So, there's so much that's ahead of me. I had to realize that just as much as was behind me, there was so much more ahead of me. And the more I began to talk to you about this fear and read about it, I said, you know what, it's time to release it. I got to release it. And I'm just going to release it, and day by day, I'm going to face it. So the first thing I realized I had to do was I had to love myself. And then I had to give myself permission to live the life free from the fear of not being able to do anything. So that's the intro to the new you.
Well, one thing that we want to do here very much so is celebrate the accomplishment that you've already had. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg because there is about to be a complete new transformation process because as you hinted to, there's so many things that have affected people, especially since their childhood and the way they were raised and their belief systems that were set. And there's information that talks to us about that by the age of 6, our belief system is set. We become conscious beings and things of that nature. And I try to make it a little humorous. It's amazing to me how people who have updated their Facebook status more frequent than they have their belief system. And it's one of those things that you see people making the same mistakes over and over and over again and not learning from them. And so we want to begin to help people realize that not only can they learn from the things that they've experienced in the past, but they can use it to build the life that they ultimately dream of. And then as a back note is that, we want to help people eradicate their fear of dreaming because most people have, when they dream in black and white. They're not dreaming in color. Right, and one of the things that I try to encourage people to do is begin to see yourself in the picture, paint yourself. I use the technique of visualization very effectively because it's what helps people begin to, remember the little red engine, I think I can. And then I know I can. And then that process kicks in and you know what, their belief system begins to raise up and their confidence begins to increase. And that combats all of that self-worth, self-esteem, and value that they may have been harboring and dealing with for years and not realizing their total, true potential. So we definitely celebrate you for that. And
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And there's just going to be some great things that's going to come about from the whole new you, the 21-day challenge, because of one of the other things that we're going to deal with besides this fear thing is how to find your true self. And you must be yourself to feel truly new, the inner game of self-confidence. And we're going to touch on how to master reciprocity. And so there's a lot of points that we're going to deal with. But I don't want to stray too far from this right here. Why don't you give us maybe one of the earliest points in times that you remember being affected by fear?
Oh, well, I think one of the earliest that I could, well, do you want me to start from as a child or as an adult?
You start where you're most comfortable. You can start as a child or as an adult. You can start as an adult and work your way backwards. It's either way you want to. Go ahead.
Well, I think I'll start when I was a child, and my father was abusive to my mother. And I think it developed a fear there at the age of 6 that I could recall when he would abuse her by raising his voice, and he would send us to our room, and then all I would hear is her just making these loud outbursts. We weren't aware of what he was doing, but just the screeching sound of a mother, having that fear of her husband, and then we as children hearing that from a distance and not being able to come to her rescue. I think that fear was the beginning of all the other entrapments of the fear. But the abuse of it, just knowing that she was being in harm's way, I began to be fearful of like the dark and fearful of lightning, even rain, So it just started there, and then it just began. It was so many other things. And so, as a child, I didn't know that I was building up fear. I just knew I was afraid. And not knowing where it started, but now as an adult, looking back, I see that it started way back when I was at 6 years old. And maybe even earlier than that. It's just that at 6 years old is where I could recall. But, as we're talking about that, it just made me think about it's really rare for a person to live without fear of some kind or another. A lot of times we don't address it as fear, but it is fear. It may be, I'm afraid of height, or I'm afraid of spiders, or I'm afraid of a new situation, or I'm afraid of rejection. These are all different types of fears that we all face as adults. Some of us fear the economy, where it's going, and fear we're going into war. I know a lot of people in the Christian world even have their issues of fears of, what might happen in the world, So we all face some types of fear.
Right.
Well, Jeff is about to chime in.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in. But what she touched on is that fear doesn't always start out with this big, huge event. Fear starts out very, very small, and the way fear comes about. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The way fear comes about is that we have a belief about something, right? And a new fact comes in, a new dynamic or a new idea comes in, and we process that against what we believe. And if that fact jives with what we believe, that fact becomes truth, right? It becomes the truth of what we now believe. If that fact comes in and goes against what we believe, now that is something that we reject or we put to a side, and we start worrying about that thing because we don't understand it, we don't know, we don't have any idea. Like, if I was to explain what the dark side of the moon to you was, I could describe what it looked like and everything, but the fact is that you'll never see the dark side of the moon in your lifetime because it's always facing away from the earth, right? You'll never see it. So I could describe it to you, and because you believe my description of that becomes truth to you. But if somebody was to describe it in a different way, then that fact would be rejected, and maybe a whole different story about that would come about. And so we build up these fears, and it's kind of like blowing up a balloon. We hold on to these fears, and over time that balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're trying to deal with life and go on with life, and we start holding this balloon in our hands of all these worries.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And at some time, like what you said earlier, you just have to let it go. You just have to let those worries, those fears, those things that are holding you back, you just have to let it go. Let that balloon go and just let it deflate,
Yeah, because
and then get back
fear
to
can be...
who am I? What do I believe really?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. All right. Go on.
Yeah, and I agree. And because fear can be paralyzing.
Right.
For some people, it can literally stop you in your tracks. So when that fear comes, if you don't face that fear head on, you're either going to conquer it or you're going to give into it. so, you don't want it to paralyze you.
Right. And a lot of people are facing fears from all sides right now, economic, religion, spiritual, family dynamics. They're just getting all of these fear triggers all at once, and it's pretty paralyzing for a lot of people out there right now.
It is.
Well, I want to chime in and say that some of the things that we are going to cover, and we're not talking about just with this particular episode, but some people may or may not have become familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, and it's the process of studying how the mind works, okay, as well as timeline therapy, which was brought about to help people with things like post-traumatic stress syndrome and how to eradicate that get that experience deleted so they can get past it, because of the problem is they keep reliving it, and now on the humorous side is you think about a movie like Groundhog Day and how every day was the same until he begins to pay attention to the small details and then begin to take advantage of the different details, but how so many people, as you guys just said, from being paralyzed to just really living each day almost similar to the previous day. And I think that's where even the phrase was coined, living for the weekend. People live for the weekend, and, it's their reprieve of all their hard work and labor throughout the course of the week. But we're going to deal with some techniques that's going to help people eradicate that fear and get past that fear, and then begin to build themselves up from the inside out versus from the outside in. And those are just going to be some techniques that's going to come out as we share and go through this radio program, The New You, because our objective, bottom line, is to make a difference and an impact in other people's lives. And so that's why I'm a part of this and very excited about it. But, Michelle, as you were sharing with myself and Jeff, back on where you started with sort of how the household was set up, as a child, and a fear was instituted of your father, with your mom. You were very descriptive in how your mom's behavior is what probably had a lot to do with this fear setting in, that when your father would come home, there things would just be, just would shift. Why don't you talk about that right quick?
Yeah, as a child, I remember when, we could be playing, we could be eating. It didn't matter what we were doing. And when my mother, actually, I'll go back to actually what it started. We said how a husband and a wife in a lot of homes, what happens is the children are told that they are to obey parents. Okay, and so from there, then you have to obey your father. Your father is the authority figure in the home, so you have to listen to whatever he says. Whether it be right or wrong, you have to obey that authority. And so I could recall when my father would come home, everything had to be hush-hush. Everybody, you go to your room, you don't come out unless you're called out. You stay there, and if you made any sound that seemed to make him angry, then, you would get a whooping. You would get chastised or whatever. And so, I could recall my mom, sometimes if she cooked the dinner that he didn't like, it was, okay, well, everybody going to get it. The whole house is in uproar now because she didn't cook the right kind of food. And so he would just make a big ruckus over it, so much so to the point that it would bring her into tears as she's making our plates for us to eat. She's in tears because, she couldn't please him, trying to be the submissive wife and do what she thought was the right thing to do, is to prepare a meal and have everything ready for him when he came home. He would make a big deal of it, and then she would just go into tears. So, you just watch that, and then as you grow up and you begin to have your family, and then you imitate what you're taught, if you do not have a big circle of people, like front neighbors that you go over their homes or family members, to go and see that there's a difference in your home and their home, you just copycat. So I recall my dad, you never, ever, ever go and spend a night over anybody's house. That just didn't happen. You don't stay at family's house. You don't stay in the neighbor's house. And actually, I didn't even get to go to a friend's house until I was probably about 14 years old. It was my first time even entering into a friend's home. Now, as far as family was concerned, he isolated my mother from the family. So, we weren't allowed to go even to our own family gatherings. We grew up in a very tight home. So, that fear just was so strong. But if you don't mind, Cornell, I'd like to talk about, the new you and how, it just made, how you overcome that fear. One thing is you find somebody to talk to about the fear. I'm so grateful for Cornell. He helped me to just deal with it. I had somebody that I could share, that I felt comfortable enough to share, that I had the fear for one. I didn't even know it was a fear. I just knew I was stuck in a place. And it took him really opening me up to talk about what could be the root cause of why I did not want to open up and be a person. I just wasn't a person anymore. So the first thing I say, find somebody that you can talk to about that fear and then work through it. It didn't happen all at once, but I am so grateful that he was patient with me, that he allowed me to, take my time. I won't even say he allowed me to take my time, because he did, but he allowed me to open up. And the more he forced me to open up, the more I opened up. So, don't be afraid that you have to open up all at once, because some people can't do that. I just happen to feel comfortable enough with them to open up all at one time. But, it takes time, but you have to first take that initial step, because you're a winner. You are a winner, and you can do it. I think these challenges are designed to cause us to take retrospect of our lives. For every stage of elevation, you can expect without fail a challenge that will try to cause you to fear and go into retreat or to not do anything at all.
Right. And there's really two responses to fear. You're going to fight it, or you're going to flee, right? You're going to run away from it or hide it. Mm-hmm. And so those are two responses. You either get angry about it, or you repress it.
With
right?
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you cope with it.
Right.
So, yeah, and I agree with you. I had a mentor that helped me go through the process of getting rid of some of those fears. So either a mentor or a friend or somebody that you can rely on that just will sit there and listen and give you some pointers.
Right.
Right. And not judge. That's the important part.
Yeah, that's
with
the big key.
person.
Yeah, that's the big key, the judgmental side. You don't want nobody that's going to be judgmental, because then it just causes you to retreat. But if you can get somebody that really has a heart to listen to you and not judge you.
Right. But I think the next step is important for people to know, too. What happens after you discover that fear? What are some of the things that you can do, techniques that you can do to get past it?
One of the things I say you could do is to just each day look at that fear. Look at it. don't run away from it. Look at that fear, because it, just take the time to look at that fear, and you might even have to write it down. Write down the thing that you're afraid of. Make a list of the things that you can face that fear. Just say, okay, these are my fears. This is what I'm going to do to combat that fear.
Right. And like mentally, there's some processes that you can do. Like you can take that fear and put a voice or a character to it, and you can rewind it like a videotape in your mind and kind of erase that fear from your mind.
Right.
With that process. And different techniques like that, where you can just take that fear, focus on it, and just make it into something else, make it into something that you can deal with, that you can conquer. And it gives you a feeling of empowerment over that fear.
That's true. That's true. Another thing, Jeff, also just asking the question to yourself, what would it be like to be free from this fear? Just asking yourself that question. What would it be like if I didn't have this fear? And then as you begin to...
That's an amazing question, yeah.
Just think of, okay, if I didn't have this fear, if I was free from it, what would I be doing, or what could I do? So when you do that, it makes you see, okay, if I didn't have this fear, just like a little kid, if I wasn't afraid that I was going to scar up my knees if I jumped off this chair onto the floor, that's exciting. I'm a kid. I want to see how it is to jump, some height from a chair down to the floor. I'm not afraid, And then he gets down there and he realizes, wow, I didn't even do any damage to myself. So that, you just overcoming that fear by one thing at a time, confronting it. Okay, I was able to, I'll say something like one of the fears that I had was doing what I'm doing right now, talking to someone about the fear. That was a big fear to me. Just being able to sit here and have this conversation, I'm telling you, I perspired so bad. It wasn't even funny. I done had tissues and towels to dry my hands. Just the fear of, oh, my God, what's going to happen when I start talking about this fear? And then now I'm talking about it. Like yesterday was the beginning of sitting in front of a camera talking about it. And today I'm on the phone, doing a radio show about it. But if you would have said to me a month ago that this is what I would be doing, I wouldn't have even taken the step because it was too big. It was just like the biggest mountain. But today I see it as a rock, so I can step on it or I can pick it up and move it, but it was a big fear to me. And not that I, at any point in my life, never had to talk in front of people, because I have, but with the new fear that had gripped me, I had just given up. And so to even want to talk about anything was so insurmountable. But now today I'm able to talk about it. So that's a big feat for me.
Right. And I had a similar process that I had to go through, because I used to be terrified of the telephone. I used to make other people answer the phone for me, like my brother.
Wow.
So whenever it rang, I wouldn't answer it because I was scared that, I don't know what I was scared of. But so just for me talking on the phone is a big accomplishment. But
I can't tell.
Right. But it's taken me years to get to this point, and, a lot of thinking about it, to be confident enough to speak in public or speak in a public forum, because I always had the thought that my opinions didn't matter. When I was growing up, children were supposed to be seen but not heard, that whole idea. And so I didn't think my opinions or thoughts were important to share. And so I wouldn't share them. I'd be silent. I'd listen, and that would be it. But I want to contribute to the conversation.
Wow.
And it was all based on fear. You know, it's based on that little voice in your mind that says, "Oh, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You can't." You know, all these different things that you worry about.
Right.
And it just takes going back to the core of who you believe that you are. And it takes a while to figure that out. And when you do that, then there's nothing in the world that can crush that. There's nothing that can crush that, because it's there. It's always going to be with you, and there's nothing that you can throw at you that's going to take that away.
Well, you know, Jeff, also
you mentioned that earlier. You got to that core belief of who you were.
Right.
And we talked about that the other day when we were talking on the phone. When you found that inner voice of who you were, all of a sudden everything changed around you.
Right. Because, you know, that fear, literally, though, when I look back over it and think about it now, that fear was an opportunity for me to grow. But I wasn't looking at it that way.
Right. It is an opportunity for you to grow. You know, life works that way. You know, it works like a muscle. Your mind works like a muscle. If you got to have resistance in order to make it grow. There has to be some challenge that you have to face, some fear that you have to face in order to get growth. And so if you look at it that way, everything's positive, you know?
Yes. Like you stated that muscle, if it's not used regularly, eventually it gets atrophy and it becomes useless. So it is with us in our lives, you know. If we don't confront the fear, then we can die, literally. Literally, we can die because, you know, that fear can make us think that we should die or that we have no purpose. And so if we feel like we have no purpose, then you're dead even though you're living.
Yeah. And recently I had a person here in town who had a massive heart attack, and he recovered from that heart attack, and he said what it was that he always wanted to control everything. He was worried about everything, and he realized during the process of healing from that heart attack that it was that worry that built up anxiety that he had inside of him that was causing some of the problems that led up to the heart attack.
Right,
and
control.
And so he had a conversion from that heart attack. He learned that he can't be in control of everything. He's not responsible for other people's other people's responsibilities. He's only responsible for his own responsibilities. He can't control things that are outside of himself, right?
Right.
And so that was the core thing that he learned from that process, that he had to go through that tragic pain and everything of a heart attack and almost, dying to get to that point. But some people, that's what it takes,
Yes.
And then some people wake up in different ways. They discover their value in different ways.
Yeah. Well, also I was thinking, when you really, really want to change your life, when you realize that you need to, for one, but when you're ready to change your life, you have to confront a fear of change, and that's the big thing. So, I challenge people to just write a paragraph or two about their life and will it be different when they overcome that fear? And then, as you begin to write, it's amazing just in your writing it, how you're like, okay, when I come out of this fear or if I confront this fear, and the more you talk it through your mind and your writing, you begin to realize wait a minute, I am going to be something if I just confront this fear. If I do this, I'm gonna do this. If I do this, then I could do this. It's just amazing, and just you're writing it.
Yeah, and that goes along with what Cornell teaches people to do, is just write out your dreams, write out what you want in life. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. If you don't write it down on a piece of paper,
right,
it's never going to happen for you. It's not going to come true. You're just going to find obstacles. You're going to be worried about things that you can't control, and fear is just going to build up and keep you from going.
Right. And
that's one of the things that you love. That's one of the things that Jeff loves that I talk about is if you don't know where you're going, any road to get you there. I didn't
want to use it because I know you wanted to say it.
And how could you hit your target if you don't know what you're shooting at? It has a large degree of people beginning to have more and more success in their life. And if I had to make sure I make one statement, this is the one that I need people to hear is all success begins in your mind. Okay? Because without that, you really can't have, or actually it'll be success by accident versus on purpose. And I'm sure all of us have known people who've had success, but they can't tell you how they did it. It was almost just an accident, a fluke that they was able to do it. Now they can't reproduce it. They can't do it again. And if it's contingent on them being able to do it again, oh, my God, it's a problem. I don't know if anybody remember the movie Flashdance. It was years ago. And the lady was a dancer, and she was never trained. And so the gentleman saw her do a move, and he said, do it again. She said, I can't. What do you mean? In his mind, you just did it. How can you not do it again? You just did it. Because she did it out of inspiration. So she didn't really know how she did it. I just did it. But we can begin to train our minds. We can begin to reprogram our minds. We can delete those things out of our lives that have held us back and haunt us and have controlled us, even with something as simple, and Jeff knows I deal with this quite a bit, something as simple as making yourself present in the present. Is a statement that I use is, you would rather be on the inside with an outlook than on the outside looking in. And again, you would rather be on the inside with an outlook. I didn't pronounce that word right. With an outlook versus being on the outside looking in. Because when you have the power of visualization to be on the inside, let's say your dream home, most people, when they go look at their dream home, they're looking at it. They're driving past it, or they're looking at a book or whatever. They're looking at it. But now can you envision seeing yourself inside the house, looking out on the yard and the grass and your children playing in the front yard or whatever? So now you painted yourself. You put yourself in there. You put yourself in the picture. And the flip side of that, some of the fears that we have, they were really just suggestions. We put ourselves in there. We gave over our authority, our power. So we put ourselves there and made ourselves subjective to the fear, which was nothing but probably something that was suggested or saying that you can't do this. And anybody listening knows that you can't spell can't without spelling can first.
Right.
Right. And when I was a teacher, that was one of my rules in my classroom is I can't is I can.
Yeah.
That because I heard that all the time. The students would say, I can't do that. I can't do that. Yes, you can. And that was like the number one rule in my classroom. You can. Because can't doesn't exist in this room. It does not exist in this room. You can do it. Maybe you'll do it bad. Maybe you do it terrible. But you're going to try. You're going to try to do it. Because in failure comes growth, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when I was teaching, that was right there on the wall. I'm like, here's the 10 rules. Of course, the administration didn't like the rules because they were too mind focused, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Too positive, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to like be quiet, raise your hand when you were called, that type of stuff. But I always encourage if there was a conversation going on in my classroom, I wanted everybody to participate. I didn't care if they raised their hand.
Mhm.
You know, when it was conversation time, when it was time to work or do their project, then you have to be quiet. But,
right.
And be thinking, like creative thinking was part of my classroom, you know. I want people to think creatively. I don't want them to copy the person next to them or copy something they see on the internet or, you know, just copying something else. I wanted to take two ideas, combine those together, and come up with a new idea, right?
Mhm.
So that was the whole process in my classroom. Yeah, I love the way Cornell deals with fear. It's unusual. I've never met anybody else like Cornell in the way that he deals with fear, and it's something that if you learn how that works, I don't know if you can do it though. Can an average person do it like you, Cornell? Cornell?
Hello? I think, I'm right here. I think what the issue is...
What I'm referring to is that Cornell, when Cornell has a fear or whatever, he just totally ignores it. It doesn't even faze him.
You don't even know he's afraid.
He doesn't even faze him. He doesn't remember it. He like goes into this hypnotic thing and it just disappears. It's like he has no fear.
Now you just said it. It's the acknowledging it. How about this? Do anybody remember the movie Space Jam?
Space Jam, yeah.
Yeah, Michael Jordan and all the cartoon characters. You know.
Yeah.
We've heard the statement, "Fear is nothing but an illusion," and false. The acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. Okay.
Right.
But Michael Jordan was working hard trying to win that game, and at the near the end of it, he realized that in that world there was no limitations, and so he's trying to get them to explain to him, how come y'all didn't tell me this in the beginning? And the answer was this: you didn't ask.
What are you saying?
You didn't ask.
That one more time.
So, okay. All of the whole him being locked and left in cartoon world or not being able to go back, it was about them winning a game. Okay, and the odds was stocked against them. All the other cartoons was the big bad guys, and they was big and strong, and man, they was able to push and knock over this and knock over that. And so here go Michael Jordan being who he is, Michael Jordan, and even though in the real world, Michael Jordan was awesome. In the cartoon world, Michael was awesome, but he was ordinary until he realized that there was no limits. Whatever your mind could imagine, I mean, from you stretching your arm, like all the way down the court,
stretching
and so, he was like, well, how come y'all didn't tell me this? And the cartoons, I mean, come on, first of all, one of the things about cartoons, they're designed to make you laugh. They looked around him because you didn't ask. I mean, if you had asked, we would have told you. But you didn't ask. And that process is about us challenging the limitations, because many of the limitations we have, they've been built by us or built by someone else that has affected us for years. And we identify those things to be true, even though they may not be true. So what I have had the challenges is being in situations where I had to ignore what was going on around me and stay focused on what it is that I was doing. I mean, we've all done it. It could be you're running late for an appointment, and you can keep on sitting on looking at that clock, or you keep getting dressed.
Right.
You know,
right.
Something terrible can be about to happen. You can get your eyes and start focusing on the terrible thing, or you can get your mind focused on what it is that you need to do to get out of the terrible situation. And so those are just, if you would say, exercises that I've done in my life, and it just allows me to just stay focused. Somebody said, hocus pocus. No, it's all about focus. You know, to stay focused on what it is that's in front of you, because, and you guys said something a minute ago, outcome, results. Mm-hmm. See, you may not be able to control what comes in your life, but you have every bit of control of the outcome of it. Okay? Mm-hmm. Even in martial arts, you know, you will grow, you know, you grow to learn. And Jeff, I think we've had this conversation before, you know, like someone goes to break bricks or boards. Those boards are literally supposed to break and shatter the bones in your hand. But when you go to break a board or a brick, you don't see yourself running into it. You see yourself on the other side of it. Okay? Mm-hmm. Say another technique about martial arts, you'll see yourself, you'll say, oh, man, you can't get out of this hole. There go that word again, can't. You know, no. Mm-hmm. Eradicate that other part and can. You can get out if you keep breathing, if you keep your mind clear instead of getting panicky and letting your anxiety work against you. Let your anxiety work for you. And now you got to do what? Think. The greatest compliment that somebody can give you, they can say, I like the way you think. Because what happens with people is when the pressure mounts and things come against them, they stop thinking of how to win, how to get out, you know, those kind of things. Their mind shut down. Panic, fear, anxiety, pressure overcomes them, takes over them, and then it's a wrap. It's over. It's too late. So that's my quick little episode on that piece that you guys just shared.
You know, but it's important how, the words that you say to yourself. You know, when you, the negative words that you feed your mind. I can't, or you know, I'm not, I won't. You know, and depending on the situation, I won't is appropriate. But in some instances, it's just I won't. You're stopping yourself. I can't. I won't move. You know, those things are constantly put in your mind, and then next thing you know, you're halting and you're stuck in your comfort zone. Well, I can't do it. Well, I might as well stay right here. I won't do that, so I'm going to stay right here. You know, and then you never move out of your comfort zone, and then that fear becomes your best friend. You know, it's like your bosom buddy. And the more you entertain that negative conversation, the more it's talking to you. So, you know,
it's amazing. Like when you have a classroom full of students, it's amazing to see how those negative words can affect, you know, everybody in the room. And when you change the language in the room, the group changes as a whole. The group suddenly becomes positive instead of negative, right? And it's just that 1% difference. That 1% of that language changes the whole dynamic of the room.
Yeah, because words have power and energy.
And negativity can really be powerful. It can be very small. But that little bit of negativity can affect the whole body, the whole system. And it's kind of like rat poison. Rat poison, 90% of rat poison is good to eat for the rats. But it's that 1% that's poison, right? It's 99% good. Well, it's that 1% that's poisonous to the rat, and that damages the rat really big. So negativity is the same way. It could just that little bit of it. It changes the whole body, right?
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to that, to what you say to yourself and what you believe yourself to be. That inner voice that you have to cultivate, that you have to find. Some people call it a seed, that you have to find that seed inside of you and cultivate it and allow it to come forth.
Well, something that we didn't touch on that I think is really very, very important is, when we're dealing with fear, is we're talking about fear, but we're not putting it to something like a person. A lot of people are in abusive situations where they fear a little person. This person is tormenting them, So with that type of fear, you definitely have to save yourself, because if you don't, that literal fear of a person can do some real harm to you. So you have to, really fight to get out. So, with that being said, you have to seek counsel.
Well, I'll mention, time is winding down, and I'm going to mention one thing that I believe people can do to help themselves. It is a very, very, very simple strategy. Find your piece of paper, draw a line between the middle of it, and, come on, this is as elementary as it gets. And start off, which this is how the mind works in a lot of cases, and don't be mad at me, but Einstein said if thinking was easy, everybody would do it. But start off and write. Allow yourself to write a list of what you don't want. And I heard Robert Kiyosaki say this, because your list of what you don't want will create the list of what you do want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people will be amazed. Make that list of what you don't want. Learn how to take that don't, that do not, into what you do want, and it will be life-changing for you to say, oh, my God, that is what I want. Because if you went around and just asked people, hey, what is it you want? Most people won't answer for fear of letting you know what they really desire. Most people won't answer because they don't think that their answer is good enough. Most people won't answer because they like, who are you to ask me this question? But
right.
The issue is your list of what you don't want will help you create what you do want. And so, guys, I think we got about 3 minutes, and I just wanted to make sure I put that out there for everyone that's listening. Go home, sit down, write a list of what you don't want, and then begin to start creating the list of what you do want.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, do you have any last words?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that list. Instead of convincing yourself to believe the worst about something that you fear, try imagining the best. Write it down like that.
Right.
Yes?
My thing right now is that I think the biggest negative word is average right now. The negative word is average. And the reason I say that is because most people are facing bad economic times right now. Millions of people are out of work. They're looking for jobs. There are no jobs. And it's because of the idea that they're just trying to do the average thing, right? They're just trying to do average. But average is not going to work. Whatever worked for your grandparents, your parents, it's not going to work in this economy because, the money is there. The money is there, but you have to go out. You have to diversify. You have to be different, and you have to go about getting money differently. So that involves more action, more steps, building yourself first, and then creating more of you, right? Using technology to duplicate yourself and to get more attention to yourself so that there's more opportunities for you to take advantage of. And you need more than just one opportunity, one job, right? You need different sources
streams
of opportunities. Right. So being average is not going to work. And people, there's only like 4 actions that you can take. You either can take action or you can retreat. And so people are not taking enough action, and they're not building themselves from the inside first. They got to build themselves. So that involves reading, that involves writing, that involves doing these different processes, mentoring. Having a mentor help them work through some of the fears and frustrations that they're having. It means taking massive action as far as getting out of relationships and situations that are damaging them, and trying to find a way out of that. I know it's not possible for everyone, but there is a future of hope. There's a future of hope, and that's the message I wanted to leave with people tonight.
Thank you, Jeff.
So you got anything else, Cornell?
No, that's it. And I am so glad that we have our first show done. And, I think it's been some wonderful dialogue. And, Michelle, I thank you for being our special guest. And I look forward to all the other things that we're going to cover. Yes. Thank you. Jeff, is all in your hands now, sir.
Michelle, you were wonderful. I mean, the information that you shared with everybody tonight was just amazing.
Thank you, Jeff.
It was heartfelt, and I think that when people listen to this recording and they're going to feel that love and compassion that you have that comes from within you, that you held back for so long because you were fearful. And
thank you. You're right. Thank you, Jeff.
That is going to be an amazing transformation for yourself and for others to take advantage of, and when they listen to this recording.
Yes.
If they weren't here live tonight.
I look forward to hearing some of the responses.
Yeah. And as far as me and Cornell, we're going to continue the show every Sunday night. We're going to be talking about different things concerning mindsets. We might, Cornell talked about some of the trigger points of the brain and how the brain works. We actually have a friend of ours, Kevin, who can actually, he studied this stuff, and he's got a degree in how the brain works. Talk a little more about Kevin. Maybe we can get him on the call one of these weekends.
Oh yeah, we'll do it. But hey, I think everyone
would be awesome. Talk about that.
Yes, I thank everyone for
Cornell
taking
shared some amazing tips here tonight. Just that whole Michael Jordan thing. I think if people really envision that in their mind and make their fears cartoon characters, all of a sudden their fears disappears. And pretend they're Michael Jordan. They can stretch their arm and do somersault dunks or whatever they are.
You about to start? You're going to start me being silly because there's a laugh moment.
I know.
You know how the best way to make your fears disappear in the cartoon world? Turn the TV off. just get the remote and turn the TV off, and they got to stay in the TV. Okay. So
just trap them in there. The fears can't get out of the TV, right?
Right.
All right. We better end this call. I think Tony's still on the line, but he might be laughing or taking a nap. I'm not sure. But we do appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, and we're going to wrap the show.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.